Hi guys, welcome to today's QGIS tutorial lesson 21. In this video, we will learn creating maps with the print composer in QGIS. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so that you can get a notification when I upload my next video. If you are new to my channel, you can follow all my previous lessons and useful GIS tips from the links in the descriptions below. Let's get started. So, some of the elements of a map are the data frame, the legend, the title, the north arrow, the scale, citation, the border, inset or locator map, among others. I will provide a link in the description that has all the information about what these elements are all about for those interested in further reading. So let's go to QGIS and start today's exercise. So I'll open my QGIS. In our previous lesson, lesson 20, we learned how to create chloroplet maps. And we're going to just use the same data that we had actually symbolized to create our final map in QGIS using the print composer. So what you need to do, you can actually just first of all style your layers here first before you now make your final map. When you're satisfied that actually whatever you have styled here is okay, including having all the labels, then you can now go to the next step, which is now creating the final map. So let's start today's exercise. You'll go to project because we want to create a new print a new print layout. So we're going to select project. Then you're just going to scroll down to new print layout. So you're going to select new print layout, and then we are going to enter a unique title for our print layout. So in this case, I'm going to say population map. I'm going to say OK, and it will create a new layout that is empty. So the first thing I will need to do is I just want to explain to you some of these things. It actually has the same interface as the QGIS desktop, which is it has the menu bar, it has the toolbars. These are the tools that we are going to be using. Then it has other tools here. Then this is now your page. This is where your map is actually going to be displayed. So the first thing you do is you look at the kind of information you want to bring. You ascertain how do you want your orientation of the map to be. Do you want a landscape map or do you want a portrait map? That's the first decision that you really need to make. Two, you need to make sure that what kind of page size do you want to have. Do you want to have an A4? Do you want to have an A3? Do you want to have an A2? Do you want to have a bigger map or a smaller map? So what you're going to do is first we're going to customize our layout. How do you customize your layout? You right click on the blank layout, and then you go and select page properties. Once you select the page properties, under the item properties here on our right, you will now see the page size. So we can actually decide to select, if you want a bigger map, you can select maybe A0 or A1 or A2. So in this case, I'm going to just select A3. We want to have a bigger page, and you can see now the dimensions are a bit longer. It's a bit a longer page, 0 to around 420. You can also customize the width here depending on how you want it to be, and the height here also. You can actually put them manually. Another thing you can actually do is you can change the orientation. Like for example, you can see our map here. It's longer vertically than horizontally. So you can either decide to put instead of having a landscape, you can actually change it to a portrait. But in this case, I want to leave it to a landscape because I want to actually include so many elements in this map. Considering that we're just doing some practice, it is not actually going to be very professional, but I expect you to have a more professional map than mine. So this is just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to leave it at landscape. Then I have already changed the page size. Now I have the page size. There are some tools that you can actually use here. You can actually be zoom in and out using your mouse wheel, or you can use some tools here to just zoom to full in case you want to have a full preview, or you can just zoom into a certain region using the zoom tool, or zoom out by just clicking on the zoom in and zoom out tool. There are other tools that we are actually going to be using here as we progress with this layout. Then there is something here called background. You can actually change the color of the background. Like for example, you want to have maybe say a pink background, or maybe say a green background, but I usually like leaving it at default. The white background always works for me. So that is the first thing you actually check. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to now bring our first element into this work area. The first thing I usually normally do is I usually add a border in my layout here. So how do we add the border? On the menu bar here, you'll see there's add items. So I'm going to select add items. Then I'm going to add a shape here. So I want to add a rectangle because we're actually working with a rectangle layout. So I'm going to select rectangle, add rectangle. Then I'm going to just select not at the edge but near the edge, and then I'm just going to scroll up to down. I think I might have to move it a little bit on my right, so I'm going to just leave it here. Then I'm just going to move it a bit so that it feels, make sure that you're not outside the layout limit here. So then I'm going to make it an outline instead of having it as a white. You can see it's white in color. I can just change the color, the style here. So I'm going to click on style. Instead of a simple fill, now I'm going to select a simple line, which is an outline. Then I'm going to change the color. I can even just decide to put maybe a green border for now. We're not going to be very sensitive with color because we're just doing demonstration. Then I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Then I'm going to just go back, and I have added my first element, which is a very nice green border on the edge of my map. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring now the data that we have actually been working on, which is the African data. So I'm going to go to add item, and this time we are adding a map. So I'm going to select add map, and I want to add my map here. So I'm going to select this here and just scroll like that to maybe say a region here. I want to leave some little bit of space on the right, and I'm also looking at the border here so that I don't join the border and my map border. And you can see it did a rendering, and my map is now visible here. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make it a bit bigger because I have a lot of space here, and I also have some space here that I'm going to add all the other elements, so I don't need to really care so much about the space that is here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the scale. You can actually manually change it here, or you can use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out. But before you do that, you need to now come here. There is a tool called move item content. We want to move this content. We don't want to move this element. Like for example, if I just leave it that way, then I try to move, you can see it moves actually the map frame, but I don't want the data frame. I don't want to move the data frame, so I'm just going to return it to where it was. I am actually interested in moving whatever content I have here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select move items because I want to move item. Then I can even use my mouse wheel to zoom in and out. You can see if I'm actually scrolling my mouse to zoom in and out, and you can see also when I scroll, these values actually change. So I can scroll to that, and you can see it is 27 million. Yes, 27 million 800, and so I'm going to just customize it to maybe say 27 million. So I'm just going to delete everything here, and you can see it's now much bigger and much better. So I'm actually going to now move it a bit up and make sure that it's a little bit at the center of my data frame. So the next thing I can actually do is I can put now a border around this data frame. How do you put a border? You just continue scrolling under the item properties still of the same data frame. You just scroll down, and then you'll see there's a place where it's written frame. So you need to check that box, and it tells you the frame is black in color. I'm just going to leave that frame as black in color. And I'm also, you can actually change the color if you want, but I'm going to change the thickness. I'm going to just make sure it's a bit bigger. Yes, and that is the frame. You can see it's a bit bigger, and we have our very nice frame here. Now the next thing I want us to do is I want us to add another item, very important item, and that is a legend. How do you add a legend? We select add legend from the item, add item, then add legend. Then we are going to add our legend here. So I'm going to select a region here where I want to add my legend, and I'm going to release, and you can see it actually populates everything that I had in my legend in my initial map here. It actually just populates it. So actually everything that is here is not what, okay, actually what is here is not, some of the things that are actually here are not displayed here. So how do we remove them so that we have just whatever we need to see, for the readers to be able to read this map very easily? You will look at the item properties when this is still checked on. Look at the item properties. There are several things you can actually change here. So I'm going to just uncheck first the auto update, because it's auto updating it according to our layers panel in QGIS. So I'm going to uncheck auto update. Then I'm just going to scroll down a bit, and as soon as I uncheck auto update, you can see these tools become active. If I check auto update, they become inactive. It means it is actually updating them automatically. So I'm going to uncheck the auto update. Then I want to now remove the unnecessary data that we are not displaying here. Here, the only thing we are displaying actually is these values of population density for 1960. So I'm going to remove some of these things by selecting whatever I want to remove, then clicking on the minus button, the red minus button here, and then also these other one for 2010. We are not actually displaying the 2010 map, but the 1960 map. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to click on delete, and you can see immediately it starts customizing. I'm also going to remove the OpenStreetMap standard and also the world map. Actually, I'm not using the world map. So, and now you can see our legend is now a bit manageable. Then the next thing you can actually do is you need to have a title for this legend. So I'm going to select here above here, and I'm going to add a title. And the most standard way of adding a title is for the legend is just calling it a legend. Some people call it a key. It depends on your preference. So you can actually see now it's a legend. Then you're going to do something else. You're going to add we're going to add a frame around it so that it looks very nice. And you can see I've added a frame around it. Then I'm just going to make sure that I place it where the exact location where I want it to be. Then I'll still come back to the legend items here, and you can see there's African countries in 1960. I want to edit these. Just want to say this is the population density. So I'm going to select these again, the title only. Then I'm going to there's a tool here called edit selected items. So I'm going to use that. Then I'm going to edit this and say this is the population density. You can actually insert an expression. You can change the shape and all that. So after that, I will now go back using this button here. I have already changed it to population density. Remember, whatever you are doing here is not changed here. You're actually just using this print composer to now create your own map that has now these all elements. So the next thing I'm going to do is now we are going to, you can actually decide if you don't want the symbols, this symbols to be on this side, to be on the right side, you can actually change them by, I'll still select this, and then the symbols you can see there on the left, I can change them to be on the right. So it's up to you to decide where you want to see the symbols, but I will return them to the left because I like them there. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add another element, add item, and this map, the most important thing also on a map is the title. So I'm going to add a label. I'm going to select where I want to add a label. Actually, I'm going to move this map down a bit, but I want to add my title here. It should be a bit central. So I'm going to now, under the main properties, you can see it's lorem ipsum. So I'm going to just delete everything here, and I'm going to write my title here, population density map 1960. You can actually customize your title the way you want. I'm just going to call this population density map 1960 Africa. I'm just going to say Africa. Population density map 1960. Then we want to do a little bit of customization. You can see they're very, very tiny. So the first thing we do is we go to the font. I'm going to increase the font maybe to say 20. I'm going to make sure the title is bold. And then you can actually even change the styles here, but I'll not change that for now. You can change the color. I'll show you how to change the color. You can underline, you can strike out, writing system any, but this is okay first for me. I'm going to say okay first, and you can see it's a bit bigger now. Then the color, you can actually change it to any color. I can select blue, and you can see it changes to blue in color. You can still scroll down on these item properties, and then say the horizontal alignment. You can see it's actually at the top there. You can just say I want to centralize it first. Then the vertical alignment, I want it to be in the middle, and you can see now it's coming out nicely. Then you can still scroll down and put a frame around it if you want. You can see I have a frame around it. I will not put the frame for now. I'm just going to remove the frame. I'm actually just demonstrating that it's possible to do all these things. Then you can also put a background, and currently it's a white background, but I can change it to, look at this background. This pink background, you can change to any kind of background you want, but I'll not put any background, so I'll uncheck the background. Then I'll try to move it at the center. So you can actually just move it by dragging it like this, or you can use your up down arrow key. So I'm going to be precise, I want to just use my up down arrow key, and I have moved it to maybe say where I want it to be. So we have actually put our very nice title here. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to add another element. I'm going to add item, and the element that you're going to now add is the scale bar. It's very, very important for the map to have a scale bar. So I'm going to select add scale bar. You can actually add the scale bar here because you're adding all our elements around this square here. I'm going to just add a scale bar here, and you can see if I zoom in to just check my scale bar, it's in kilometers, and we want to just customize our scale bar so that we see the different kinds of scale bars that are available in QGIS. So under the main properties, the style is single box. I can say I want a double box. You can see it changes the scale bar a bit. You can say you want line ticks in the middle. It changes to the line ticks in the middle, but I usually like using the single box. And then here under the units, you can say kilometers or meters, but we are going to use kilometers considering our scale is actually a very big area, like a whole continent, so we're going to be using kilometers. And then our scale is a bit short, so I want to make it a bit longer so that it reaches somewhere maybe here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the segments. There's the left segment and then there's the right segment. You can see the right segment has 2, so I'm going to increase it to maybe 4. 4 is a bit long, let me just say 3. Then you can decide the kind of units you want. Like for example, per every unit is 500. You can change it to maybe say 1000, and it actually even makes it long. I'll just return it to 500. Yes, so you can actually do so many things here. You can just scroll down, do the different options. You can put a frame around it with maybe say green color. I'm just showing you that actually it's not, it's the colors that I'm actually using are not the standard colors. You know, when you're creating your map, you should actually put that in mind, but I'm just showing you so that you can know how to actually do all the different elements. Then you can even put a background if you want, and the background color you can even put it to that color, or maybe say yellow color, and let's just leave it at the yellow color for the background of that, so that it's just for class purposes. Then the next thing you're going to do now is you're going to add another item. So I'm going to click on zoom to full so that I can see the whole of my map. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an item again. Then another very important element in mapping is a north arrow. So I'm going to select north arrow, and then I want to add my north arrow, maybe say somewhere, maybe say here. So I'm going to select where I want to add it. Then you can see by default it gives you just a very simple north arrow, but I want to have a bit of a sophisticated north arrow. So you can see under the item properties there's the SVG images. So these are the pre-installed images in QGIS. So I'm going to select arrows, category called arrows, and I'm going to select an arrow here called the north arrow here, that has a north arrow, an N on top. You can select any other that you like, but for me, let me just check the options that I have. I'm going to select that north arrow and an N and the circle, a ring around it. It looks nice, but actually the fill color is white, so actually I'm going to change the fill color to maybe say black, so now I can actually see my north arrow very nicely. So my black north arrow is here. You can actually increase the size by just pulling it like that at the corner, or just reducing it like that. For proportionality, always use the corners. Don't use these, the side, but the corners. It actually makes the symbol proportional. So I'm going to just select that. So that's my north arrow. I'm just going to move it down using my up down arrow key, because it is actually much simpler, and it is also important for alignment. When you're actually putting your elements, you should make sure that you put into consideration something called alignment. They should be aligned in a certain uniform way so that your map looks professional. Now the next thing you're going to do is we are going to now add another item, and that is you can add actually so many items. I want to add a logo. Like for example, if you're working for an organization and you want to also include your logo as part of the map, you can add your logo through using the add picture. So you can select add picture. Then I want to add my logo, maybe say I will actually put it below here. So but I'm just going to work on it here first before I move it to the bottom. So I'm going to put my logo here, just assuming. Then currently now my logo is in my computer somewhere. So instead of using the SVG images, I'm going to select raster images, and under the raster images now I'm going to select the three dots here and browse for where my image is. So I'm going to look for where my logo is, and I have my very nice logo somewhere on my computer here, and I have a logo here. Yes, I'm going to select my logo. Yes, and that is my logo added. So you can actually add any logo for the different organizations you're working with in your map. I'm going to just move all these other elements up a bit so that I have a space for my logo. Yes, so the next thing you can actually do, you can actually add any kind of picture that you want using that add item, then add picture. The next element I'm going to add is credits. So one thing I'm going to do is, well, if you want to add credits, you just come to add label because they're still part of text data. Any kind of text, actually any kind of text data, you can actually add it using the add label. So I'm going to just select where I want to add my credits. I'm going to say my data source maybe say UN OCHA. Then I'm going to say the projection of my it's very important you put the projection. Is WGS in 1984. That is 4326. Then I'm going to even say designed by me. Yeah, so you can actually add so much more information that you want to add. You can change the text to the different kind of color that you want to show for the for that text. And then you can see now, I'll try to zoom in a bit so that you can actually it should not be very, very big because that is not the main aim of you making the map. It's just something to, I'm just trying to showcase all the elements that are required. So then I can move this logo here. It's very important you learn how to align your work so that your map looks more professional. So we're going to add now the next element. Okay, you can actually add so many other elements. Now, another very, very important element that you need to add is an inset. And an inset, like for example, very many people, maybe not everyone knows that Africa is a continent or something like that. So what you need to do is you need to actually make an inset so that if someone wants to actually learn the location, and this one applies mostly when you're dealing with small regions and you want to show that small region exists somewhere in the world. So it's very important to have an inset. So I'm going to add item, then I'm going to add now a map here. And you can see it has a very, very big map and a small map of Africa. So the next thing I want to do is, because I want to add an inset here, I want to deal with this first. I'm going to select this. I'm going to save the style the way it is currently first. Then for this data frame, so what you do is I'll select this African population, the bigger map, and then I'll come here under the layers. I'll say I want to lock these layers, and I can also even decide to lock the style so that no change is going to be made now in this layer here. So the next thing I want to do is now I want to go to this data frame here. You see this data frame that is not locked. So we want to actually show the map of the whole world here and showcase where Africa is. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go back to my previous map here, and I'm going to now select, I can actually decide to select the world map here. I can just uncheck everything so that I remain with the world map. Then I'm going to zoom to layer for the world map. So I can just decide to use either these, or I can decide to introduce an OSM street map. So I'm going to go to web, then quick map service, then I'm going to select the OpenStreetMap. I'm going to select the OpenStreetMap standard. I'll wait for it to load, and it has loaded. So I'm going to remove this world map, and I have now the OpenStreetMap standard. So I want to showcase that Africa is within the world. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my map on this other side, and you can see it has already actually refreshed this data frame, but you can see this one just retains everything that it had. So I'm just going to move it down a bit. Then I'm going to do almost the same thing that I did on the other side. by first I'm going to make sure that this is to the full zoom of the whole of the world. So I'm going to go to move item content, then I'm going to just zoom in and out until I can see the whole world there. Yes, now I can see the whole world. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to show that the Africa in relation to where the world is. So I'm going to just scroll down on these item properties of this data frame. I'm going to scroll down, then I'm going to select overviews, then I'm going to click the green plus button to add an overview. So as soon as I click on the green plus button, I'll get overviews. Now, which map frame do you want to overview? So I'm going to select map 1. This is the map 1. I want to have an overview of map 1. So you can see it has now drawn a very nice rectangle around Africa. So I can actually decide to style it. I don't want it to be just a fill color. I'm going to style it to a simple outline. And I'm going to retain the red color. I think the red color works fine for me. And I'm going to make sure that the stroke style, there is a pen on the stroke style. And then I'm just going to increase the thickness a bit so that it's visible. And you can now see we have a very, very nice visible overview. So I'm going to just click on the blue button back. And then I'm now going to do this. Because I'm not going to do any other edits here, I'm going to lock the style and lock even the layer style. Then I'm going to now have a title for this. I'm going to say it's a locator map or an insert. It's up to you to decide what to call it. So I'm going to add a label. I'm going to add the label here. And then I'm going to call it locator map. I'm going to change the fonts a bit. I'm going to say I put maybe 14. Also put bold, then okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing to how I did to the other one. I'm going to make sure it's at the center, in the middle. And now I have a very nice locator map. I'm going to also include a frame around this data frame. I'm going to select frame, and I have a very nice frame for it. So I have now created my insert here, showing where the region that I'm actually working on. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm now going to go to another step where we're going to be adding grids to the bigger map. So I'm going to, and before I uncheck the lock style, I can actually do this. I'm just going to uncheck lock style, and you will see what will happen when I click the refresh button. You can see now it has actually refreshed to what we are working on here, but I want to just return it to how it was. So I'm just going to select these again. I'm just going to uncheck Africa OSM, and I'm going to make sure that this is to zoom to layer, and then I'm going to click the refresh button again here, and now my map is back. So it's very, very important when you want to create an insert, you lock the layers and the style so that you don't actually mess up with your map. And you can now see the locator map. However much I try to refresh, it doesn't actually change. And you can see I've already even unchecked it here. It's not in view, but it has already been used to create our locator map. So the next thing we are going to do is now we are going to add grids to these. How do you add the grids? You can scroll down on the item properties when you have selected this data frame, and then you will go to grids, and you're going to click on the green button here to add grid 1, and then you're going to edit or modify the grid. So I'm going to click on modify that grid. Then the type is solid. The CRS, I'm going to use the current projection, which is in degrees. So I'm just going to say for the X interval will be 10 degrees, and the Y interval, let's see if 10 degrees works well. Yes, it works well actually. Intervals of 10 degrees each. And then the Y interval, you can say maybe because it's a bit longer, like say 20 degrees. Let's see how it looks like. Yes, and now you have your grids. If your grid line is a bit very visible, you can actually change it by selecting it Then changing the style here, you can change the width to maybe say 1, or you can even just change the opacity by making sure the opacity is a bit low, or you can actually even change the style of that line by selecting it, and then instead of a solid line, you can put dashes or dot dashes, and it will give you very nice dashes there. I'm going to use dot dashes. Then I'm going to go back. Then I'm going to scroll down still. We are still on these. Then blender mode is normal. Then the frame style, you can put zebra if you want, but you had already put a frame. So I'm just going to say exterior ticks to have some exterior ticks, and they're very, very small. So I'm going to try and make them big. You can see now they're increasing. I can change the color so that you can see they can be visible. I'm going to put a blue color here, and I'm going to just show you how long they are becoming. As you can see, they're very long now, but I can just say, let me put 2 millimeters. Then the margin, you can actually move it away or move it to 0. I'm going to put 0. I'm just going to. Then the thickness, you can make them a bit thick or a bit thin. Let me just zoom in so that you can actually see the changes that happen. You can see by the thickness is changing there, and then it's reducing. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Then I'm going to zoom to full. Now the next thing we want to do is, now we want to have the coordinates written around these. I'm just going to zoom in so that when the coordinates are written, you can see them. So I'm going to still scroll down the same, select draw coordinates. I'll leave it at you can decide to leave it at decimal. I'll say maybe degrees, minutes, and seconds. Then I'll say show all. Outside frame, you can decide to put them inside the frame or outside frame. It's up to you to decide. The left, and you can see it has actually drawn your grids here. 20 degrees, 0 degrees, which is the equator. Then there is 20 degrees here. Then the top grids, you can see they are very well aligned. So we want to actually do a change for the left grids and the right grids. You can actually see they are actually even overlapping. So we want to change the orientation of how they are. We want them to be aligned straight, vertical, and horizontal. So for the left side, we're going to say outside frame. Then instead of horizontal, we're going to say vertical ascending. And then for the right, and you can see it actually rectifies it immediately. Yeah. Then for the right, we'll say the same thing. Instead of they're outside the frame, instead of horizontal, we'll say vertical descending. And let's look at what happens to that. And you can see now they are very, very much okay. They are vertical ascending and vertical descending. So we can actually even still scroll down here and maybe say the coordinate precision, maybe say to, instead of 3, we say to 1 decimal place, and it actually changes the coordinates. So I'm going to select the data frame and scroll down, and I think that is the much that you can actually put in this map for now. The next thing you can actually do, you can actually also include tables. You can draw circles in this map by using add item. You can add shapes like a rectangle, and then if you are not satisfied with the rectangle color, you can change the color to maybe say the fill color to be maybe red, or that. You can see you can actually change, you can actually add more shapes to this map, or you can change it to an ellipse, changes to an ellipse, or you can still change it to a triangle. So it's up to you to decide what you want to showcase. And if your style, if you like, for example, you want to show this triangle here and you want to still have the background, you can just change, instead of a simple fill, it's an outline, then you just retain the color that you are using for that, and then the thickness, and that is pretty much it. You can actually add so many elements. I'm just going to delete this, it's not necessary for a map. You can still add item, then you can add an attribute table. I can select the attribute table that I want to add if I want to give extract information, and you can see it just picks the attribute table that I have. I'm not going to showcase anything here about the attribute table, but you can just look at the attributes that you want to remove and remain with the kind of attribute you want to show. I think we will discuss that maybe in depth in the next lesson. Then I'm just going to delete the table. You can also just add a fixed table where you can just draw and give your table, edit table, and say you want maybe say certain information, the number of rows and columns you want to have. But we'll discuss that more of that in the next lesson. So I'm going to just delete it. So now that we have most of the elements that we require to make a very nice map, we're going to now, how do we save? We're going to go to saving this map. How do we save the map? It's very important. First, you need to just save it in the project here so that you can continue from where you left. Then you can go to layout now. Then you can export the map as an image or as a PDF. So for now, I'm just going to export this map as a PDF. It will ask me where to save it. I want to save it somewhere in my folder called QGIS training. It's a PDF format and it's called population map. I'm going to click on save. And then I'm going to just say, oh, save. And you can see it has successfully exported. So I'll click on that folder. And then this is my map. I'm going to open the map in PDF. And now this is my map. Actually, you can actually see all the elements that we are actually adding are now in display. So you can decide to share this map to your friends, or you can just look at it and look at the kind of changes you are supposed to make. Like for example, can you see these grids are very thick? I can actually change them. So you can actually have a preview of how your map looks like first, then now improve on it as you continue sharpening your mapping skills. If you found this video useful and you want to learn more on QGIS, subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell icon so that you can get a notification when I upload my next lesson. Otherwise, I'm just happy you're here. See you in the next video.